half a day. A month is much too much, or wouldn't you say? A second is too short, an eon too long. A week is just stupid, and so is this song. Ooh, everybody's got a half an hour. Haven't you got a half an hour? This bill only needs a half an hour. So come in and stay.
Live from Bangkok, Thailand, the video podcasting capital of the world, it's the Kirchenbauer Half an Hour. I'm Bill Kirchenbauer, your host, along with Paul Brumbaugh. Welcome to the show. It is the Kirchenbauer Half an Hour. Paul is on the west coast of California, and I am in Bangkok, Thailand. Our motto is, I talk to myself, there's Paul, I talk to myself all the time anyway, so you might as well listen in. Well, welcome to the show, one and all. I appreciate you tuning in. I usually forget to do this, but I'm going to do it right off the bat now. It's like and subscribe. Like and subscribe. And to all my friends on my Bill Kirchenbauer YouTube channel, I'm going to quit posting the show on there pretty soon. So I would like you to please move your little butts over to the Kirchenbauer Half an Hour. Don't leave the Bill Kirchenbauer channel, but also like and subscribe to the Kirchenbauer Half an Hour. I know a lot of you have been watching the show on my channel, Bill Kirchenbauer, but I don't want to do that anymore. I'm just going to post it on the show, make the show its own place. And Facebook, you can watch it on Facebook on my page, but I'm going to take it off of the Bill Kirchenbauer's. So if you want to watch it and find it, then like and subscribe to the Kirchenbauer Half an Hour to the second power. Mm-hmm. That's that little cookie, or what did we decide that was? Donuts, the little things they put in video DVDs.
Oh, the Easter eggs.
Easter eggs. That's what it's a donut.
I always think like you're on a hunt. You're on a scavenger hunt or a hunt, right?
But that little two there, when I originally thought of the name for the show, Kirchenbauer Half an Hour, which was actually a suggestion for the name of my sitcom, Just the 10 of Us, which they ended up calling it that. I said, to call it the Kirchenbauer Half an Hour. Anyway, so I've saved it for this. And please like and subscribe, and that'll help us with the analytics. Every week on Sunday nights, I post these, and I pick a subject. We might start having some guests on. I might have some guests on. Up until now, it's just been Paul and I, but I might have some guests on. I ran through a lot of my friends on the audio version of the show, but I'm going to maybe try to get some guests on, and we maybe. Oh, here's what I was going to say. When watching the show, we're going to do a little segment now. I didn't tell you about this, Paul. I don't tell Paul about stuff. We're going to do advice from Bill.
Oh, good. Okay.
So people can write in the comments what they want advice on, and I'm pretty good at this. I have a lot of my friends have always come to me for advice. I guess I'm a sensible guy. I don't know. But so write in your question. Be about anything. I know I do not know how to give you a bigger penis. Things like that are not relevant, especially if you're a woman. But you know, you got a little problem in your life. You don't know how to handle it. Maybe you have a father-in-law who's got bad breath, or you don't know what to do about it. Maybe you have a neighbor next door that's a jerk. Maybe, I don't know. But we're going to start making that a segment. So, advice from Bill. I'm just like, Dear Abby, Dear Billy, Lost in Wisconsin. Remember those things? Dear Abby, I used to love to watch that.
Oh, yeah.
Read it. That's when I would read the newspaper.
Everybody loved it because it was syndicated, right? Everywhere.
Well, yeah, but you know what the weird thing was? It was actually two women. There was Dear Abby and there was Ann Landers.
Oh, yeah,
and they were sisters. And they were sisters. And they did the same damn thing. and they fought over it, and I don't think they got it well. And one of them died ahead of time, so the other one kind of so it was, and they looked a lot alike. It was very confusing. I'm sure there's a YouTube story about it, but that's the old time. That was back in the 50s and 60s. I think they died off, and she was not a very attractive woman. She looked like she should be. Both of them are kind of had, kind of models like Paul Harvey. You ever see Paul Harvey? Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello, America. Stand by for news. Yes, Mrs. Harvey uses Miami. My grandmother used to listen to him, but he did radio and was very successful for many, many, many years. And then he went into doing little short segments that he would sell to affiliates. And they were like 2 minutes, and they'd stick him in the news. And it didn't go well. He was a very, very ugly man. He had like a Frankenstein face. Hello, America. Radio, fine. Like they say, they have a voice for radio. Well, you have a face for television. Well, this guy did not have a face for television. He had a voice for radio and not a face for television. And so he was ugly. He was an ugly guy. It didn't work out, and it crashed people's image of him, so it didn't work out. So we're going to do that. Write in if you want some advice. You can write it on the comments in the YouTube channel, or you can write to me on the Facebook thing, and we'll answer them. We'll do that. Okay. Let's get around to the main business of the day. This is a big subject. I don't know. I could talk about this probably for an hour, but I probably only got a few more minutes than I normally will do. We're going to talk about
flying. Okay.
We've only been able to do that for about the last almost a little over 100 years. We've gone from the attempts. I always like to watch the old movies of the guys that thought they could fly, like the guy that jumped off the Eiffel Tower with the big wings and stuff.
Right.
It wasn't good to watch him die because that's what he did. But I mean, and all these, and that one thing that had like 4 wings on it, it was like a quad plane instead of a biplane, and it started flapping its wings and it fell apart in different attempts. I first started flying when I was young because my dad was in the Army, and I think one of the first flights I ever took I went to Florida because he was on a pistol team, and I don't know where we were coming from, but I remember my thinking what I was going to do. This is probably about 5 or 6 years old. I was thinking, I'm going to take a rock with me. And when we get up really high, I'm going to drop it out the window and watch it fall.
Oh, geez.
Well, I brought the rock, and then I figured out that just wasn't something we were going to do. It was like the time I flew the kite off the back of the ship, the cruise ship. They didn't like that either. But I tend to think out of the box. But I took a flight, and this is before jets. This is old prop planes. They used to start up. They go, and they did not fly nearly as high as planes do today. Planes nowadays fly between 35 and 40,000 feet, usually around 35. But back then, maybe 20,000 feet. So it was pretty entertaining because you could look down and actually see things. I don't know how high. Remember, yeah, I was like 10, 15, 20, a lot lower than the jets fly now. And you could see things, and you could fly over people's houses. It's like the last 2 minutes of before you land in the jets, where you're about 5,000-10,000 feet, and you're up and you can see people walking around in cars and stuff. And we flew on this thing, and I remember it making a lot of noise. And when we got food, here's a throwback, when they served food, which is something they
and not just a bag of peanuts.
No, not just a bag of peanuts. It was actually like a little tray like they had before, but we didn't have the trays that would fold down. There were no trays. Nobody had thought of that yet. What they had was a pillow. They'd give you a pillow, and they'd put the tray on the pillow, which worked all right. But they give you real silverware and things like that. would have been easy to hijack a plane because they gave you a knife back then. It was like a real knife. And they had the stewardesses that were flight attendants. We used to call them stewardesses. Now they're flight attendants. I'd like to know how many miles I've flown in my life with all of these 30 years on the road, and then just flying back and forth. I mean, from LA to Bangkok is like 9,000 miles. I've probably flown. I'm going to say about 1,000,000 miles, probably.
You don't have frequent
Or close
flyer
to it.
miles. I'm surprised.
Yes, I do.
Oh,
Yes,
well,
I
that
do.
would tell you, right? You could tally those up.
Well, that doesn't tell them because I've spent some of them.
Oh, there you go.
And I flew for a long time before they came up with those clubs. So not all of it, and I didn't. I mostly have American and United, but there were lots of airlines at one point. So I've built up the frequent flyer, and I've used them. I've used them for different occasions. They've gotten worse and worse by them. But my son once made an interesting observation. He said traveling is nothing but a series of standing in line. And when you think about it, that's true. You get out of the airport, you get dropped off at the airport. Maybe you go park somewhere. You park in a big lot. Then you got to stand around a line to get the shuttle to take you to the airport. Then you go in out of the you got to stand in line to get your baggage from the shuttle. Then you go inside and you stand in line. I used to check my bags all the time on the curb, and you can't really do that much. Some places I think you can. I don't know, but they want you to take your bags in, so you got to stand in line at the ticket counter, and you got to put them in there, and then you're going to stand in line now to go through security, and you got to stand in line to get on the plane. You got to stand in line to go to the bathroom, and you got to stand in line to get off the plane. Then you got to stand in line to get a cab. Then you got to stand in line to get a rental car, and it's just a big long day of standing in line, and it's rough. A lot of club owners never understood that. They'd say, "Hey, I've come in. First show's Friday night. I'll fly in, Friday." And I go, "No, no." So it's been a lifelong rule of mine as a traveling comedian to go the day before. I've spent a lot of days before because I can't fly all the way across the country. Maybe up to San Francisco or something, but I can't fly all the way across the country and then do a show that night. It's just I've never been able to. I think I have done it, but I've noticed that I'm just so tired because I've gotten up early usually, especially when I lived in LA because I'd have to get up early to get back east before it got too late. And and then a lot of club owners didn't understand time zones either. They'd say, "Oh, we have a radio show for you at 7 o'clock," and I said, "Can I do the noon guy or the afternoon drive?" I said, because it's not 7 o'clock here. It's 3 hours difference. I've flown last night. And so when you're saying 7 o'clock, which is still early, you're actually saying 4 o'clock to me. You want me to get up in the middle of the night and, you're 7, but my 4 o'clock, and then go do a radio and be funny. And then I got to go home and back in the room and then go do another one and another one maybe and a TV show and then go back and sleep all day and then I got to do a show. So it's not possible, but it's becoming more, just a pain in the butt to fly with the security and then taking your shoes off and all this. And I'll tell you what my top unfavorite things are, and that is this new pay for your baggage. Now, I think that is like the worst thing. In fact, a few years ago, I called for a 1-day boycott of all airlines, but nobody listened to me. But I think we should because it's charging people for bag. I mean, who's going to go somewhere and not have to take shit with them? Nobody. And they try to say, well, we try to adjust it to those that need that. No. You're just trying to squeeze. To me, I never thought restaurants should charge for parking in their parking lot. Hey, I'm coming to spend money. Don't charge me to park in your parking lot. And so to me, when someone's flying, the bag goes too. And some people are abusive. And if they are, then you can charge them. But it adds, I think I saw one last time I was looking like a month or so ago. I think it was like $55, $65 each way. That's the price of a ticket practically. I've actually paid more in luggage fees than when I bought the ticket. So that's one thing that I think is absolutely horrendous that they've done. Things that annoy me on airplanes. Well, people.
Right.
People gathering. Let's start at the gate. Usually they got some mealy-mouthed little gate person. All right, well, everybody line up at the gate and then thing. And I saw this one woman one time. And nobody was listening. Nobody was obeying. You just like everybody get in the line. We're gonna board from the back and I was last, one of the last. Sometimes I used to wait last because I had a seat and I didn't want to. And I went over and I told her, I said, you're really not very good at this. I said, you have no authority in your voice. You need to get on there. Nobody listens to you. No, everybody crowds up near the thing. You ask them to crowd, uncrowd, and they don't because they're not listening to you because you're a little mouse like this. So I said, you got to speak up. In fact, better yet, get a guy to do it. Everybody move back. We're not going to board until you won't be back. That's what you did. But people that crowd the gate. And then my latest thing is people with backpacks. They get on with these big backpacks, and which makes them about 3 times fatter than they are because they wear them on the back. And they go down the aisle bumping people left. I've been bumped left and right from people. They particularly like to bump the people in the first class. But the smart thing to do is either take it off and carry it or wear it in the front so you can see where you are with it instead of bumping people. And then people that kick the back of the seat, people that don't understand. Sometimes I'll sit behind the bulkhead. I don't like to sit up front. Everybody in theaters and shit, everybody wants to sit up front. And that's the worst seats. In Vegas, I heard people say, oh, we sat right up front. I could touch Sinatra's shoes. Yeah, that's a terrible place to sit. Now, up front, on an airplane, up front, I guess if you got to make a connection flight or something. But, don't sit in the theater. Don't sit there because this is what if you're up front in the theater, this is what you have to do. Because you're right up front. Yeah, you're close,
right?
But where you want to sit is about halfway back. In fact, if the theater goes to this and then goes up and back, that's where you want to sit, right on the edge there when you're up above the main floor. But people want to sit up front. I sit in the back, and I can't tell you how many times I've had 3 seats to myself, because I go to the back no matter what my seat says. I always go to the back because the airlines, for some reason, they want to load up the front and the middle, and then they get real sparse in the back. They'll pack people in the front, but yet they'll leave one guy in the 3 row, in a 3-seater empty. And I go, when you can spread people out, and you think they would because there's, they talk about weight distribution. So I usually sit right back. People say, "Oh, I don't listen to the engine." Well, it's an engine. The sound is going behind you by the time you hear it. I got news for you. And they say it's one of the safer places to be, actually, if something happens, that you can get it. They used to have doors that went out the ass of the plane. They don't do that anymore. I haven't seen one of those in years. But that and kids, people that let their kids run up and down the aisles. People that this irritates me too is how they treat the flight attendants. I've seen so many people sit and they'll sit there, and the flight attendant will come up and they will be on the aisle, and the flight attendant will come up and say, "Would you like something to drink?" And they're looking at a book of their phone, and they just go, "Coke." This is where we've lost it in society. How about lifting your fucking face off the phone, looking up at her and say, "I'd like a Coca-Cola, please," or "I'd like a Coke, if you will. Thank you." Or that's it. They don't even say thank you. They put it down, and
it's common decency and common courtesy.
There's no common decency. So I can see how I've told flight attendants, I've gotten in the back sometimes, especially if they're cute women. I'll go in the back and I'll talk to them. I said, I don't know how you do it. And they laugh. I said, I don't know how you put up with these people. I said, they're just such idiots and they're stupid and they don't know how to get out of the way. Um, it's just so, just so annoying. I've met some interesting people on the airlines, particularly in like business when I'm lucky enough to fly business class or something. I once flew with this one guy. I remember this one guy. He was like a genius. He was like he was a member. He was like a genius, and he would work at think tanks, and he was like a Neil Tyson deGrasse, whatever.
Yeah, the scientist
Yeah,
guy. Yeah.
except he's about space. This guy was about the smartest person I've ever met. He was a young guy, and I said, and he was interested that I was a comedian, and I was interested that he was smart, and I was. And I said to him, "So, what do you do with these think tanks?" He said, "When we get together and we think about stuff and analyze stuff." And he said, "I know a little bit about." He said, "I know a lot about everything." I said, "Really?" I said, "Okay, this is I also got to hang out once with uh, Bill Nye, the science guy.
Oh yeah.
And he said, ask me a question. I'll tell you what I asked him one time. But I asked this guy, I said, okay, answer me this. Why is it that these jet planes that we're traveling in right now haven't gone any faster since 1958? I said, they all still go about 600, 650 miles an hour. And he said to me, well, it's because of vibration. He says, if you get going too fast, he said, they start shaking. So they can't build a commercial airplane this big like this. You can build little jets that they build really well, but you can't build a big plane like this because it would shake to death. I thought that was a good answer. Obviously the right answer. But this guy. So I've met a lot of people. Then there's always a person who wants to tell you their whole life. There's a psychological theory about that, how people like to talk to strangers and tell them their business. Well, my son used to be a murderer, and then I divorced my husband, and he's just going, oh, please. And then they ask me, they say, well, what do you do? And I said, well, right now, at the point, I'm going someplace, I'm going to Chicago, I'm a stand up comedian. Oh, a comedian. This, I always hate this. Oh, really? Tell me a joke. Oh,
Yeah.
it's
Inevitable.
I always hate that. I mean, would you, if somebody said they were an author, would you go, oh, really? Write me a book? And I say to them, what do you do? Oh, I sold life insurance. Oh, yeah? Give me a free policy for a year. They always find it. So they say, tell me a joke. And I know a few jokes, but I'm not a joke teller per se. So I say, well, I do a lot of different things. I don't really just tell jokes. I'm just funny when I want to be. When I don't want to be, not all that funny. And, but most people are, now I'll tell you an incident that happened to me on an airplane once. It was terrible. I got kicked off.
Really?
Yeah. I'm in business class out of Southwest. Oh, by the way, I once told there was this guy, I forget what his name is, a crusty old guy that owned Southwest, Cranston or something. He was a cigarette smoking guy. He invented Southwest. He's dead now. But and he was actually on the plane, and which is good. He traveled on his own planes, and I knew him. I recognized him. You see him here and there. And there was a flight attendant who was a black guy, young black guy. I think he might have even been gay, but he did the announcements, and he kept and I'm sure he knew that the boss was there, and he kept calling the airline Southwest. Welcome to Southwest. And it's anything I hate worse than anything is people that get on YouTube or whatever and can't speak correctly. And so as we were getting up, Mr. Old Crusty, owner of the airline, he was in the aisle there. And I said, hey, nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. And he said, oh, yeah. Your flight? I said, yeah. I said, you got to tell this flight attendant to pronounce the name of the airline all right. He says he keeps calling it Southwest. And I think it's Southwest. And he kind of went, oh, well, yeah, I don't. I'm sure he didn't do anything about it, but you know, pronounce the name of the fucking airline you work for correctly. All right, that's my point. So where was I? Oh yes, getting kicked off. I was on this America West. Remember America West? They used to have a hub out of Phoenix. I was on this flight, and I was in lucky again to be in first class. And so I'm sitting against the window, and there was a family that got on, and the little kid, I think it was a little boy or a little girl, had their seat next to me. And I don't think the father liked that there was an adult man sitting next to one of his kids. That's just my assumption. And I was sitting there, and then at one point before we took off, he made the kid switch and sit with whoever he was sitting next to, his mother or something like that. And he was sitting next to me. And I was tired. I was going home. I'd gotten up too early. It was just, and I was, and I had one of my Kirken fans. I don't know if you've ever seen it. There was, we used to call them church fans. And I had this thing. I was just like kind of fanning myself because they hadn't turned on the air conditioning. And all I remember is that I went kind of to sleep. I nodded off. And next thing I know, this guy wakes me up. I wake up. He said, shut the fuck up. And he grabs my fan and he breaks it in half and he starts screaming at me. Now, bear in mind, we're in first class. There's only about 12 seats there. The flight attendants were sitting up front, a woman and this gay guy. And he came back and he said, oh, please. The guy, so the guy wakes me up and I look at him and I'm like, what? I don't know. And this guy takes the fan, he breaks it, and he starts yelling and screaming at me, and he gets in my face, and I kind of pulled back like I was going to punch him. I wasn't going to punch him, but I was like, hey, I had no idea. And then the gay guy comes back and goes, now look, let's not escalate this. Let's just take it down. I said, I'm not doing anything. I was sleeping. I said, this guy starts with that. Okay, but let's not escalate this. So next thing I know, the pilot is turning. We're 10 minutes out. The pilot has turned the flight around, went back to Phoenix, Sky Harbor, and parked the plane. And we get up, and there's cops standing there. And there's this guy, this cop standing in, put this guy over there and take me over here. I go, what happened? I go, well, let me start out this way. I was sleeping. And this guy grabbed my fan and broke it in half and started yelling and screaming at me. And yeah, I got defensive, and I was gonna, I thought he was gonna hit me. Well, make a long story short, neither he or I were allowed back on the flight to take off. And I never found out what this guy went off on. I don't know if he was on drugs. I'm thinking, and you remember our last show, I said I had sleep apnea.
Right.
So I'm thinking maybe I was leaning against there and I went, to catch I don't know. I was sleeping. That might have been it. But why he would I think he just bumped me and go, hey, quit, I would have went, oh, okay. But he grabbed the fan and broke it and made a big deal out of it. To this day, I don't know. They didn't let me talk to him. I had to go get a motel and wait till the next day and fly. And it was not good.
Wow.
That was one story. The other story was on a Frontier flight I was on. And I was sitting in the back. And Frontier is a terrible airline. It's like, it was a notch above Spirit. And I was sitting in the back, and there was a couple of stewardesses and a couple of stewards. And I could hear them. They had the curtain shut and they were in the back and they were making a shitload of noise. Well, it turned out, I was listening, that this was their last flight. They were retiring, or one of them was retiring. So they were having a little party in the back. Excuse me. And they were making so much noise. And I was watching, they had the thing open and they were just being, and I said to him at one point, I said, you guys are making more noise than the engines of this airplane. And sorry, there's so many gay guys in these stories, but one of the flight attendant guys, and it becomes relevant later on. He said to me, when I had my phone out, I said, "You guys are being too loud." He just went, "Well, we're having a party." And it just blew me off. So I took my phone out and I started recording these people making this noise. Well, he saw that and he came over and he goes, "You can't videotape, you can't record that." I said, "Yes, I can. I can record whatever I want. You have to delete that." I said, "No, I'm not going to delete it. I'm going to take this and I'm going to show it to your bosses." "Well, I don't know, you're making so much fucking noise." I said, "Really? You're acting like like passengers. You should be." Well, he didn't like that. So we get to Austin. I get off the plane. There's cops. There's like 2 cops, and they pulled me over and said, "Oh, I heard you had some problem on it." I said, "Yeah." And they're making a bunch of noise, and I told them they were making way too much noise and way too noisy, and blah, 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 blah. And the cop said, "Well, this guy says you call him a faggot." And I was appalled because I didn't. I wouldn't do that. It had nothing to do with the thing. So this lying son of a bitch told them that this was his last day, so he had nothing to lose. He told them that I called him a faggot, which would take it up to some sort of, I'm sure they would figure it as a hate crime or whatever. And I said to the guy, I said, "First of all, he's fucking lying." And I said, "And if I had, you could ask these people that are coming out behind me that were all around because the plane was full. They would have heard it because you can hear how I speak. And I didn't do it. And he's lying. He's making up shit. He's bearing false witness. And he should be arrested for that because he's telling you a lie. He's lying to the police." Well, after that, they just talked to him. They talked to me. And I think as I walked away, I said, you son of a bitch liar. Something like that. The cop said, "I don't leave him alone." So I went off, and that was my Frontier experience. It's very stressful. Flying is very stressful. I think I remember one of the reasons I got a smartphone was because my son showed me how you could download your boarding pass. That was my big motivation to buy a smartphone. I thought, you mean I can get my boarding pass before I could download and print it out and have a boarding pass when I get to the airport? Wow. And so that helped a little bit. Aside from the $20 hamburgers and the food and the $4 bottles of water and the people and places not to. One time I was in Savannah and this person was charging their phone and they had found a plug that was in the wall, I think, and they ran a wire or the cable all the way across the crosswalk where people were walking and back. It was kind of like a big thing, walking back and forth and to get to their phone. And I looked at this, I go, what? Now, I'm not going to start problems. I've learned that I'm not the police in this situation, especially at the airport. So I went and found a security person. I said, "This idiot over here has 20 foot of cable running from the wall over to where he's sitting. And people are having to step over it and roll wheelchairs over it. And who knows, somebody might be laying on the floor there right now." So they had to go back. They went over there and talked to him and told him, "Well, you can't do that." And so it's just amazing what people do when they fly. I haven't flown for almost a year, I think now. And I don't miss it. I've flown enough. You think going from New York to San Francisco is bad. Well, try going from Bangkok to LA, 21 hours. I used to think, I once flew to Europe and that was 10, but 5 hours is nothing now. my favorite airline, actually, American Airlines, and when I say American, I mean not the brand, but all airlines, pretty much suck. When you fly international and you fly on other airlines like Emirates or Cathay Pacific or some really nice European airlines, you see the difference. American Airlines are always, if you take all the airlines in the world, are always like at the bottom. They're not. Aeroflot, the Russian airline, is really bad, and I would not fly on an Indian airplane. So that's about all I know about flying. I've done a lot of flying. I hope you have too, and maybe you don't have to. I call for a boycott on all the airlines until they don't charge us or at least give us one free bag and some attractive stewardesses. That's what's important. And people that don't talk loudly and kick the back of my seat. All right, that's it for the Kirchenbauer half an hour. I know that was about 6 minutes extra from what you bought into. So Paul and I are going to disappear now. Please like and subscribe and tell your friends, because I want to get more people on the show, and I think it's interesting. I was looking at some of the analytics the other day, and we're getting people. So please like and subscribe, tell your friends, watch the show, and good night and happy flying.